Hi, y'all. Welcome, Moon Griffon Show. Great to have you with us. I am back. Appreciate everybody putting up with me yesterday. I had to leave. I had actually a death in the family. My bride's aunt passed away, so we had to take care of that yesterday. So I did a quick run to Baton Rouge and took care of that. But anyway, I appreciate it. By the way, I want to congratulate Brandon Como. I got an award-winning producer now. I just want to tell people, award-winning producer, AP award-winning producer.
Thank you, man.
And before somebody gets excited, waiting for producing my program, it had to do with sports, nothing to do with politics or anything else. But congratulations.
Thank you so much, man.
I think that's awesome. You and Ian, what did y'all do? Was it producing real quick?
Oh, I mean, it was for the football broadcast that we do. Which, look, we appreciate you, Moon. You know how you help behind the scenes with that, too, so thank you so much.
Yeah, but you haven't gotten my bill yet. Hey, it could be 2 or 3 weeks of pay. You never know about me. But anyway, Brandon, congratulations. I was going to do that yesterday, and I didn't want to forget to do that. All right, got a special guest here, Mr. David Callecod, who, by the way, I do know with Lafayette General Health. And, by the way, it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you.
It's been a while, I know. You ain't missed much, as you can tell. I got a little bit more grace since you saw me.
I've been listening to you, guys.
You putting up with me. That's what you're doing. All right, David. And by the way, folks, he is president of Lafayette General Health, and all the discussion about health care, notices going to the governor, cuts, things like that. And they're called to get on. And my God, we couldn't wait to have y'all on and talk a little bit about what's going on. Let me just set it up like this, David. The state, as usual, that's just my opinion. I've been doing this for 25 years. We've talked about budget cuts and the way we've drafted our constitutional amendments where we can only cut health care and education. Well, we're going to leave the education out, although y'all deal with education too. We're going to talk about the health care and the cuts and talk about the need for y'all. I know y'all need X amount of dollars. I know this is a partnership that was covered by the general, not with the current governor. Talk a little bit about what's going on and why the need for more money and things of that nature, because I think you've written a letter and several other people have written letters to the governor saying, if this budget's not rectified by July 1st, we're pulling out. So talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, that's correct, Moon. So I was listening to you Wednesday, and so the misconception going into this session is that the governor has included any money for the public-private partners. And so it's not an issue of us not having enough money. It's the fact that we're actually budgeted right now to receive zero. Nothing.
It's not going to happen, but I understand.
Yes.
That was his original budget when he's saying, don't pass this one.
That's right.
Okay.
And so we're sitting right now with a deadline, which is June 30, which is at the end of this fiscal year, where we're faced that if the legislature does not dedicate funds to us, Lafayette General Health will be on the hook for the entire operation of University Hospital and Clinics. And so I'm going to use round numbers today just to give you a general idea, but that's roughly $150 million a year enterprise. And when you look at the dollars that are received, there is a significant portion. Almost half of those dollars are from state funds, different types of state funds coming to us. And so on a monthly basis, your community not-for-profit hospital system would be responsible to fund the state operations at University Hospital and Clinics for $6 to $7 million a year, or a month, excuse me.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that times 12, and you think about the fact that, we're sitting on, roughly $200 million of reserves, we couldn't last very long meeting the state's obligations.
Can I make sure I'm on the same page? Are you talking about just your hospital or the hospitals all over the state?
I'm just talking about our hospital.
Your hospital in general. Okay.
And we can talk later about the other public-private partnerships. But, in our deal, basically, we have the ability to give the state notice, let them know that the funding that has been allocated or that we see today is not going to meet what we need to continue in the deal. And so that's what really precipitated the notice that we gave to the state. 5 years ago when we began this partnership, we did it for a number of reasons. One, we're the community-based hospital system. The state at the time was looking at reducing university and hospital clinics to 10 beds, dramatically reducing services there, closing a bunch of clinics. And so we stepped in and with the general administration negotiated a partnership that not only kept University Hospital whole, but we also negotiated to bring 25 residents to Lafayette General Medical Center. And so at the time, we went from having no teaching hospitals in the LGH system to 2, University Hospital and Lafayette General Medical Center. And so we also increased the number of residents in our community from 60 to 86. Mm-hmm. So more doctors are being educated now in our community than were before. And when we look at the transition, and I hear your program, and we talk about conservative principles and that sort of thing. In the original design of this, it was a perfect fit because it took state general fund dollars, $300+ million that was flowing to LSU, and it replaced those state general fund dollars that were coming out of the budget with public-private dollars. And we began paying lease payments to LSU, which replaced that money that had been coming from the state coffers. And so the general administration recognized a $300+ million savings in the first year, and we've seen it every single year since that time because the public-private partners are paying lease payments to the state. So, in this current budget, it imagines us continuing to pay the lease payments and not getting paid anything and be responsible for all of the costs related to the care delivered. And so it's just an untenable situation. We're 5 years into the deal. I've seen remarkable things, remarkable work done by our wonderful staff at University Hospital and Clinics. The number of patients we take care of each year grows. Our ability to provide services that had never been provided at that campus before, the number of specialists, the types of procedures, all of that has expanded over these 5 years. And the faces that I see, the folks that are grateful because it is really the only place for the 54,000 individuals across Acadiana that seek care from University Hospital and Clinics. It's really the only place they can go to because what it has become is not only what it was designed under the Long administration as, what was used to be called the charity system. So yes, there are people there who can't afford to pay, who have no ability to pay. But more importantly, when we expanded Medicaid in the state of Louisiana, it is the de facto provider of Medicaid services. And so primary care Medicaid in this community and for the 8-9 parishes that make up Acadiana, the majority of those folks seek their primary care from University Hospital.
Let me ask you a question, though. Y'all are reimbursed about 133% of Medicaid and costs, which is a pretty good amount of money considering some are getting 40 and 70% kickback. And I wanted to ask you about that because that concerned me. Because when y'all start talking about hospitals are going to shut down, and I see people talking about that, reality is our hospitals are not going to shut down. They're not going to shut down if y'all cancel the contract. And my beef was not with y'all. My beef was with Jindal. Signed 2 things with him. He signed a deal that y'all really can walk away just that quick. I thought it was a bad deal for the state in that part of it. And in fact, if me and you cut a deal, you can walk away, no questions asked, and then it falls back on me. But what do I fall back on? I thought that was a bad deal for the state, that part of it, not what you talked about. Because I understand that hospitals, they're getting people in and out quicker. There's some good things that have come from it. I'm agreeing with you on that. That was my big beef with it. It was my beef the other day. We got a contract that allows you guys to walk away from it anytime you want to. So the governor, they're meeting the other day, and I watched the House and Senate a lot, as you know. They're meeting, and they're talking about the hospital deals. And the governor or Dorn or one of them says, well, we got letters from the hospitals saying that they would close. So they asked to produce the letters. They couldn't produce them. And all of a sudden, a few days later, they could produce all these letters. So my next question, I guess, is how much pressure did y'all get to write a letter so they could run around and show the letter? Because you've been here, David. You know how we play the game. Let's tell people we're going to throw the poor people out, the sick people out, the people on dialysis. I've been watching this for 25 years, and I'm getting a little frustrated with it because it's the same thing. When you guys say we're going to close the hospitals, you got to be honest with people. You're not going to close the hospitals. You're not going to close the hospitals. There's parts of the hospitals that may stop for a little bit, but they're not going to close the hospitals. You get where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
It's the same political stuff. I know you being sincere. I know y'all worked hard to do things that are right. But I'm just saying, when we start hearing that flies all over me because in the state government, we're not changing anything.
Sure.
And it's frustrating because I'm a business guy. You're in the heart and soul of oil and gas industry. People have lost their jobs. People have had to get big cutbacks. My question is, where do we go? Because It looks like to me the governor's not moving till he get new taxes. He's using y'all to play on the heartstrings of everybody else to get more tax dollars for y'all to get that kind of money. That's why I'm frustrated.
Yeah. So first of all, let's go back to the 133% of
Sure,
Medicaid.
Sure.
So when you look at those figures, the reality is that every Medicaid patient that we take care of, we lose money. We don't get paid our cost. It doesn't cover our cost to take care of Medicaid. And so even though we've expanded Medicaid in the state, the dollars that come to us to care for those patients do not cover the costs of our nurses, of the supplies, of the equipment, everything that goes into taking care of those patients. So when you see that 133 of Medicaid for Lafayette General Health, it includes all of the costs that are non-allowable under graduate medical education programs. And so what we did in our deal is we negotiated with the state to get supplemental payments that would cover the costs of LSU faculty.
So y'all getting supplemental pay too?
Yeah. That is what is built
That's
into the 133.
Okay.
And so it's
But
a
it's
hybrid now.
supplemental. Okay.
It's a hybrid now. It used to be included all in a supplemental payment.
Okay.
That was called UPL, upper payment limit. It was all in that. Now it's a hybrid. There's some that come from those funds, but the majority comes from full Medicaid pricing, which is what they're using to draw down federal dollars. So no, we are not getting paid 33% more than our cost for each Medicaid patient. We're being paid that to cover all the non-allowable loss that we took when we took over the LSU hospital. Okay. So that's first. Then, I've been here 10 years. I love the state of Louisiana. I love Acadiana. It is such a unique place.
Absolutely.
But, I had no idea that I was going to be required to get a PhD in Louisiana politics when I came here to run a healthcare system.
But that's what I'm saying.
The
politics of it bothers me.
I'm with you, and I'm frustrated, and I think we all are frustrated because it's not putting Lafayette General in the middle of it. It's putting the 54,000 people who get care.
I know, but when we come back, I got to take this break.
Yes,
Who you thought? I'm going to come back and we'll say everything you get to say. David Callecod, my special guest, and he is with, let me say it again, Lafayette General Health. He is the president. So we will visit with him this whole hour. We're going to get to know a little bit more about health care, maybe more than we need to know. David, we'll take a break. Be right back. Yeah, Oh, welcome back, Moon Griffon Show. Mr. David Callecod, my special guest. He is the president of the Lafayette General Health right here in the great city of Lafayette. All righty, Hickson has a hotline, 844-766-6607. Hickson has a hotline. All right. You were making a point, and we had to take a break, that when you came here, you didn't think you had to, I think you were saying you had to have a degree in politics or a degree in something like that. Go ahead and talk about that, because we were kind of talking about the politics of this, which is the part that bothers me more than anything else.
So when we negotiated with the General Administration 5 years ago, the original intent was that these agreements would save the state general fund dollars, significant savings to the state at the time. And they would not ever jeopardize the financial viability of the host institutions. And so in these agreements, we tried to design, bumpers and clauses in there that would protect us, because we knew that the administration would change. We knew that the legislature would change, and the people involved in doing the original deal wouldn't be there someday. And so you were speaking about our ability to walk away. We demanded that be kept in there, because I knew that eventually we would be at this point, which is
we always come to this
which
point,
is there's $3.4 billion that can be cut. That's higher ed and healthcare, and higher ed and healthcare kind of alternate who gets cut the most each session, and it's wrong. As we look to advance the state, two of the things that we really need to protect are education and healthcare. And so we protected that because, given that notice, it puts pressure on the state and puts pressure on the legislature to make sure that the funding is there. And so the situation that we're in now, the only way I can equate it to you would be if Town Square Corporate came to you and said, Moon, I know I got a deal with you, and I know your contract says I'm going to pay you X, but in 2 months, I'm going to pay you 0. And not only am I going to pay you 0, Moon, but the days that you're on the radio station, you have to cover all of the expenses for Town Square Media Lafayette out of your own pocket. Mm-hmm. And Town Square as a corporation continues to do fine, but you as an individual get hurt. And basically that's what they're asking us as a health system, is to be responsible for the entire cost. And so when you get into that situation, or if the state said they were going to cut us 20% or 30% or 40%, and it's sort of a take it or leave it, we have to have the ability to walk away. And so we don't want to. We have 800 employees at that institution, and they love their jobs. They love the patients that they take care of. And it, no matter what kind of institution you work for in healthcare, it is a mission, and people feel it, and it's a calling. And so
my wife's a nurse.
We don't take this lightly. I wish we didn't have to play this game, but all 5 years it's been a different deal.
But you're admitting, see, and you said a game, but it becomes kind of like that to the general public too, because private citizens are going, look, I can't pay any more taxes. What do I cut? Mm-hmm. That's what we get into. What do I cut? I got a special needs child. Do I cut her education to make sure that you and everybody else has everything? I can't cut my sales tax because it's mandated. I can't cut my property tax because it's mandated. People that are working in this economy are wondering what they're going to cut, because what the governor's going to do is he's trying to see how much more money he can get out of it and to take care of what you're doing. Going back to the Medicaid and you talked about how much was cut from healthcare and education. I'm not here to argue with that, but I'm here to say this. The biggest growth in our state government has come from Medicaid and from the health department.
Yeah.
That's the biggest growth we have. Now, what they do with that money, I'm not smart enough to tell you, and I'm not going to act like it, because I'm not. Mm-hmm. But if you got the biggest growth in that department of anything in the state of Louisiana, it seems like they can get that done. And if hospitals, and let me go back, and this is the politics now. Mm-hmm. Okay, so understand this is not a shot at you, but it's the politics of it all. The politics of it all says basically one big thing, that we're going to put health care and education here. We're going to put it, well, we can't fund it because that's what people are going to freak out the most. And that's why it's designed that way. Mm-hmm. The budget has been dedicated from the constitutional amendments 189 times. Who did that? Politicians down at Baton Rouge. Not David, not private sector, but the politicians in Baton Rouge. So I'm going to let you respond to that when we get back, because that's the problem I'm struggling with. Yeah. I understand your struggles now, and that's why I wanted you to come on, because I want to hear a little bit more about it. You're not going to be funded at zero. I'll bet that anybody any way you want to. Just hold your thought. We're going to come back and let you talk. We'll be right back. Oh, welcome back. Moon Griffon Show. Great to have you with us. 844-766-6607. Hickson has it hotline. Mr. David Callecod, my special guest. He is the president of Lafayette General Health. We've been hearing about health care. We've been hearing about hospitals closing, scaring the heck out of people, by the way, David. But let me go back and let you explain to people. I told you the biggest growth in our state has everything to do with Medicaid and dealing with the hospitals. And it is. If you look at the budget, it's by far the biggest growth. But you said you think you know why.
Well, and Medicaid growth,
part of it anyway.
Yeah, Medicaid growth is not just healthcare spending in hospitals, but it's healthcare spending in general, and for all those services that fall under Medicaid, including nursing home care. And so when you look at the expansion of Medicaid and how that was done, we were in the final year of the 3-year 100% match or 100% pay from the federal government, and so Louisiana benefited in that the feds paid for all of it that first year. Now we're at a point where each year Louisiana has to pay for a little bit more of the copay of that expansion. And so, when you look at that growth, yes, it has occurred. Yes, it is the thing that's grown the most, but it's been federal dollars. And the state dollars that have been needed, we actually, as a hospital industry, we came together, proposed to the state that we pass an assessment on hospitals that bring new state general funds in as an assessment that is paid by the hospitals depending on how large you are and how, the revenue of each hospital.
Do you know what the number is on that at all?
Not off the top of my head. It's not
very important. I'm just kind of curious.
And so when you look at those dollars, yes, it is grown, but even the contribution that we're making to the federal government is coming from the private providers and the hospital systems, including University Hospital and Clinic, which is included in this assessment, even though it doesn't benefit from it. those dollars are actually coming from private funds. So I get it.
Can I ask you real quick? But that wouldn't be all the dollars, because y'all could never generate enough money for the money that's coming in. The state taxpayers are still footing a lot of that bill.
Very small percentage of it, because the assessments that the hospitals are paying are covering the hospital and physician services that grew under Medicaid expansion. So when you look at what's left over,
but who's paying the assessments? I mean, the patient's paying the assessment through fees and things of that nature.
Well, we can't really pass an assessment on. I can't in my bill to a patient, I can't include another 5% or 3% or 2%, 1% assessment. You can in
medical, I guess you can in everything else.
I can't do that, because all of our fees, when someone comes in and has an X-ray, for instance, chest X-ray, I get paid 500 different amounts for that chest X-ray, depending on what insurance they have, whether they have Medicaid, whether they have a private insurer. Every amount is different, and it's all we're all under contract with all of those payers. So when we pass an assessment, I can't pass that on to the consumer. It's just something, it's a cost that we eat that we then have to cover. And this area in particular, when we look at the impact of what's happened on oil and gas, job loss, the amount of unemployment that we have, it has been an extremely rough 24, 36 months at Lafayette General Health. And so we've broken even for the last 2 years in a row. So when I hear these stories about, the public-private partners unfairly benefiting from this 133% payment for Medicaid, or anything else you're hearing out of the legislature and some of that testimony, there's not this largesse that's coming to Lafayette General. It's not. We're barely breaking even given the economic issues that we've had here locally and the changes in payer mix. And so back to the matter at hand, we absolutely want to stay in this agreement. We believe that it is part of our mission to restore, maintain, and improve the health of our community, to be the partner with UHC. We believe that we are educating residents and getting doctors trained in a way that this state has never seen before, the quality of that education.
That's a question on
and we want to be a part of that.
The training in other states, are they using Medicaid-type reimbursement? Is that a private sector-type deal? I was told if you go to other states, basically the private sector partners up to do the training and create these medical training grounds for the next doctors or whatever that's coming up. Is that true? So
you're going to find this hard to believe, Moon, but we're terminally unique here in Louisiana. We do it our own way. And so
I'm just kind of curious.
And so
we do a lot of things, by the way, different than everybody else. I understand that.
And so states, I will tell you this, states that have the mix that we have in terms of poverty, when you look at the number of people that are below poverty level in our state, when you look at states that are similar to us, they try to use federal funds like we are. We have maximized every supplemental federal program that you possibly can in order to fund education of residents in medical education. Most states have dedicated state general funds, dedicated tax dollars that go to fund LSU School of their medical schools.
But you do realize the big beef down in Baton Rouge is that we dedicated all this money and we need undedicated. And I'm sitting here going, who dedicated? Well, the lawmakers dedicated.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to this whole conversation about pennies and dirty pennies and clean pennies. And,
that gets so the regular person is not even paying attention to that.
Exactly. And so yeah, every special interest has their funds protected. But what I'm telling you is that most states value their schools of medicine in a way that those funds are never in jeopardy. Because it's so important to educate doctors. 80% of doctors stay where they've trained.
I believe
and in this last year, we had almost a 20% reduction in the number of LSU born and raised students stay in our state for their training. So 20% drop. It's went from 70% down to less than 50% are staying in state. And our residents, our kids that are finishing medical school are saying, we don't want to hear about this, whether or not we're going to close every year. We don't want to hear that our programs may close, and so they're choosing to go out of state. And as I said before, 80% of medical residents stay where they trained.
We got about 2-3 minutes for a break, but I wanted to throw this at you. You mentioned 100% on the Medicaid at first, and of course we're starting to pay more. But David, this is a hypothetical, but it's really not. What if tomorrow the federal government, which is, by the way, broke too, what if they just said, you know what, we're only going to reimburse 70%? Where does that leave the state of Louisiana? Because if we can't, eventually people are going to run out of their money. Government's going to run out of everybody's money trying to fund everything. Mm-hmm. So where would that leave us if all of a sudden Trump and whoever's in charge goes, you know what, we just can't do it anymore, guys. We're going to send y'all 75%. Where would that leave the hospital in the state of Louisiana in the contract when y'all can just walk away? Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? I mean, I know it's a hypothetical, but it's also true that we are starting to have to pay more. Mm-hmm. So it's really not a hypothetical. Now, maybe it won't go that quick. Mm-hmm. But what happens then? I mean, does the state of Louisiana, do I have to pay double income tax? I'm asking you because this is what people that I talk to and you talk to every day, how much more can we give to make sure? I mean, a hospital is important. You know it is? I know it is. It is important.
Well, I have the honor of being chair-elect of the Louisiana Hospital Association. I'll be chair of that group next year. And in that role, I'm actually chairing a committee that's looking at Medicaid reform and potential Medicaid structures. And when you think about what the Trump administration talks about, which are block grants and moving to a program where you have a set amount of federal dollars each year that go to each state, Louisiana faces a real problem because depending on the type of block grant program they use, whether it's a per capita or a set amount, when you look at the dollars we spend per capita versus the average state on a Medicaid recipient, we are an outlier. We are tremendously higher than the rest of the states. And so we face a real problem.
So you're telling me this won't be a hospital problem, this will be a Louisiana problem in general, everybody.
And it'll be what discretionary programs we have under Medicaid. It will be the way we pay for nursing home care. It will involve hospitals. It'll involve physicians.
Involve the big expansion too? Won't that be part of the problem?
Oh, absolutely. Because it will include the expansion population.
Yeah. It's just, God, we're in such a position, and that's why I don't like the rallying cry of them, the governor, them holding up y'all letters, they're gone. You scare people. I just don't, you didn't start this. This started way before you were born, way before I was born. They start that, and that's the part that bothered me. And that's why I mentioned the other day on a contract, was it a good deal for Louisiana in the big picture? When we get back, I got another big question for you. All right, David Callecod, my special guest, Lafayette General Health. He is the president. We'll come back one more segment. You're listening to the Moon Griffon Show. Hello, welcome back, Moon Griffon Show. Special guest, Mr. David Callecod, my special guest. He is the president of the Lafayette General Health. I hope I didn't butcher your name too bad.
No, you're all over.
Close. I got David right.
Yeah. A lot of people down here say Callecod, so try to make it Cajun.
Brandon sat there and practiced with me for about 10 minutes.
Oh,
so
very
we did
nice.
the best we could. Hey, David, because we're going to get into the economic impact, and I'll give you a few minutes to close. I just want to mention this. And I don't know if you had anything to do with it, and it doesn't matter. When Bobby Jindal and them built the hospital down in New Orleans, I was against it, but I got good information. I mean, C.B. Ferguson was living. David Vitter was against it. They just said it's too big. It's too many beds. They didn't say don't build something, but not that. Mm-hmm. $1.4 billion, probably ended up being $2 billion, but that was the number. I always said if they built it, they'll never be able to fund it. Back in the days of higher ed, when we couldn't fund it properly, we built another university. Not to cut where it's built, we built another university. And I thought, wow, how do you do that? How does that work? Mm-hmm. I got to believe it's hard to fund that. And they're one of the ones, not maybe with y'all in the private sector, trying to manage this. We can't afford everything. I wonder how much money would be out there for everybody else if he hadn't built a big hospital. I'm not asking you to even comment on it. It just bothers me when we do stuff like that. We don't do smart things on the front end. Mm-hmm. It's why we run into the problems we run into now.
Well, and again, that agreement is with LCMC down in New Orleans, and so I certainly know about it. Certainly, I know the folks down there, and it is a very large facility, and it is it's in a place where New Orleans lost a lot of population, and at the same time they lost population, you had rapid growth of the other health systems, and so really the opportunity or the chance for it to do well is going to be for LCMC to turn it into a destination location, for it to be an academic medical center like we see across the country with other flagship universities.
Once again, that takes money,
and that takes money, and it takes time because you have it's generational here. You know, I mean, people still refer to that brand new hospital as big charity.
Oh, no doubt.
You know, and they refer to our hospital as charity. And the thing of it is that, you know, Louisiana had the only system like that in the entire country where those folks went to separate hospitals. And
we should have changed it. Really, we should have changed that back when Foster was governor.
Yeah,
and we had some money to do it.
And so when we look at that, when I say, you know, I'm talking about folks who don't have insurance, who don't have the ability to pay, you know, and you look at other states, it's not structured that way. So yes, all of the public-private partners that run these LSU facilities, we have to become something more than what, you know, Governor Long designed years ago with the creation of the charity health system. And so if LSU can improve their image, it really needs to be through us adding programs and making it to where if you're really sick, you go to an academic medical center. Yeah. In the rest of the country, that's the way it's structured. So, in regard to the economic impact, I think when we think about university hospital clinics, it's not just the 800 employees there; it's the overall impact of that hospital to the community. And so when you look at LEDA actually did a study, independent study, looking at what those dollars do in the community, and it's about 1,500, almost 1,600 jobs. It's $250 million economic impact on the community. And our 800 employees and the patients, the 54,000 employees that are at UHC, come from, you know, the 9 parishes that make up Acadiana. And so this is really a regional issue as we look at, you know, potentially what might happen. I agree.
I just don't want to see. I don't want people thinking the hospital's going to close.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. But that's the political side of me. I just don't want. I'm out there. Well, they might close my hospital. And I've met somebody that worked there, and they said, I tell you what I'll do. I bet you don't lose your job. If you lose your job, come see me. I'll pay your bill. And they laughed at me, but
and Moon, the difference now, and our long-term employees there, they've been through this dance, and particularly the people who worked, you know, for LSU. The difference is that we're at a point where we have a budget of zero. You know, this is different. At a point where, you know, the last thing we ever wanted to do was give a letter to the state, and we did that letter. We were not encouraged to do that letter. The administration didn't come forward and ask us to do the letter. I have a fiduciary responsibility as president of the largest employer, you know, that provides almost $1 billion of economic, you know, of revenue in our community with almost 4,500 employees. You know, we're by far the largest private employer. I have to protect that institution that has existed here for over 100 years. And so that letter is really to protect us and to protect this community asset that you own and everyone else owns that live in this area.
Politically, and that's what I lost my mind, because I know you told me earlier the other day. I lost my mind on that being waived. That here's another. I see them doing it with TOPS. Now they're doing it with y'all. They just grab the things that will rile people up the most. Mm-hmm. If they're supposed to fund you first. If healthcare was that important, fund it first.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, you mentioned your frustration. Yeah. I'm with you. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated because I continue to see Louisiana ranked 49th, 50th in health outcomes. You know, when you look at the public health crisis that exists in this state, it's pretty alarming. When you think that almost 70% of the babies born in this state are on Medicaid. Okay, I mean that speaks to the economic situation in our state, and it also speaks to the need for us to do a better job educating people and a better job in trying to take care of their chronic health conditions. And so this is not a way to improve outcomes. You know, this dance that we do, which now has become every 6 months because it's. You know,
you're right. I'm not arguing with that.
We have a mid-year budget cut, and then we have this dance that we do every year as we look at the new state budget. This is not a way for us to improve as a state. This is not a way to run a state. This is not a way to run a healthcare system. And I just wish cooler heads would prevail and we'd figure out a way to solve this long term. And I think, in looking at your many years of being here, not to say you're old, Moon, I would never say that.
I'm older than you.
Well, that's true. You got about 5 years on me, so that's good. But, there are structural changes that this state needs to do, and in the way the budget works, and that's outside of my sort of purview. But we've got to figure out a way to fix this as a state, and this is This is neither a Republican or a Democrat issue for me. This is about the health of this community, and this is about us changing the overall health of our entire state. And we can't do it. We can't make any long-term plans, systemic changes in this state, unless we fix these funding issues. Because we can't be playing this game every 6 months, trying to figure out how we're going to pay for things.
It's sadder than that in the fact we've been doing this not 6 months, not 6 years, but probably for 60. We've always played the political game, and look, there's not one person you're going to talk to that doesn't want to fund health care properly, me included. It always gets to what our priorities. You know, if health care and roads and all that are priorities, we would be funding all that stuff. We really would. We would have never took our budget and tied it up with constitutional amendments to where you got to dedicate so much money so we only come to health care and higher education and cuts. They can fix that. It's a choice. Republicans and Democrats are making bad choices. And it's putting pressure on you and the hospitals and the people that work in our communities. And it's just a shame. My beef, though, like I told you, was I just know from a tax dollar deal, I just think we got to be careful that we don't get too high on the people that are pulling the wagon because, like you said, a lot of poor people, a lot of people not working, a lot of people working in low jobs. And that's just, it's a big picture thing for me. For you, you're a little bit more fine-tuned because it's your profession. It's what you do. And you have to fight for what you do. I understand that. I appreciate you coming on air. And anytime, you're always welcome.
Well, I certainly, as I listened to you last week, you know, I listen to you all the time. You know, I've found that you may not be right, but you're never in doubt.
Well, you gotta be something.
And I love that about you. I love that about you. But I knew I needed to get on here, and I appreciate you letting me come on here. And I'm available certainly as we move through this regular session, and I know we'll be heading into special session probably mid-May, and you know, hopefully
I'll make you a deal.
Cooler heads prevail.
You won't be not funded 0%, and the hospitals are not going to close. I'm sticking to that. God bless you, sir. Good to see you again.
Okay, good to see you too.
Okay, we got to take a break. More to come. Moon Griffon Show right after this.